Welcome to the Knowledge Economic Podcast. This is Working in Series, and today we are talking to UEA alumni who are working in the government service. Here we have Jade Golding, an economic advisor from the Department of International Trade. We can hear more about her role and how she developed her career this far. Good afternoon, Jade.
Good afternoon.
First of all, can you tell us when did you graduate from UEA and what was your program?
Yeah, of course. So I graduated in 2018 from BSc Economics.
So where are you currently working and how long have you been in this role?
I'm currently at the Department for International Trade, and I've been in this particular role for about a year, but I've been in the department for 3.5 years in total.
So what was your previous roles and how did you join?
So I actually joined on the civil service fast stream in 2018 after I graduated, and I had 3 roles as an assistant economist, and then I got promoted a year ago on temporary promotion. And I did it temporarily for 9 months until I got it permanent when I went through the interview panel.
Okay. In which city do you live now and what about it is good for your career?
So I actually live in London now. I really like living in London, especially for my job. So I think I'm based in Whitehall and that's where a lot of government departments are. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Lots of sort of government departments nearby. It's a really good environment to work in. I think there's a lot of opportunities in London, especially for people with economics degrees.
So do you have any advice for recent graduate on how to decide which industry to choose?
Yeah, so I'd just say sort of remain open to options. There's lots of different industries, roles out there. It can be quite overwhelming, especially as you don't really know what a day-to-day job entails until you start it. So definitely remain open, but definitely use all your resources at the university. So you've got the careers talks that the department put on. You've also got careers central talks, and they have you can have meetings with the guidance sort of counsellor, and they can talk to you about your different career options. And I did that when I was at uni because I had no idea what I wanted to go into. And if you see something that you think is interesting, I'd definitely say research into it, look into the company and the roles. And you also speak to the lecturers. They might know people that are sort of in that role or in a very similar industry, and they can point you to the right people to talk to and learn a bit more about the roles.
So what inspired you to choose this particular line of career?
So I actually really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I was very open to opportunities, and it was actually an email that came through from the economics department, sort of the careers lead at the time, was advertising this opportunity, and I thought it sounded really interesting. And yeah, when I did a bit more research into it, I thought it sounded like a great opportunity, a very sort of varied career you can have in the civil service as an economist. And yeah, I think that's what interested me the most, is that you could sort of change roles every year. You worked with a variety of different people from different professions, and sort of different walks of life. So yeah, that's what I think interested me about it.
Thank you for that. So which skills you have acquired during the university days that you are using in your current job?
So my current team can be quite technical. So I still use some of those statistical and econometrics techniques that I learned at uni. I also incorporate a lot of sort of economic knowledge I learn. So a lot of my role is about looking at market failures and sort of how we can address them. And I am actually also an assessor for the economic assessment centres. So when new assistant economists are joining from the fast stream or the mainstream, I sort of assess them One part of that is on their sort of economic knowledge. So it's really important that I sort of retained a lot of that sort of first year and second year economic knowledge to make sure I can sort of accurately assess the new people coming in. And then a lot of the soft skills as well. So things like presenting and teamwork. I use that in my job a lot. And I think a lot of jobs require that. So they're really important skills to sort of build up at university.
Yes. And this is an interesting one. So what would you do differently if you were given another chance to begin your career?
Yeah, so I think this is quite a difficult question. But I think maybe one thing I would have done is made more use of networking opportunities. So even now, sometimes I find networking quite cringy or a bit awkward. But actually, when you're looking for new opportunities or you want to know a bit more about a new role or you want to move departments, especially sort of throughout government, you have lots of opportunity to move about and change jobs. It would have been really important to sort of build those connections with people that are in sort of areas that you're interested in and sort of building that informal relationship. So it's easy to talk to people about what they do. And then if you're interested in an area they work in, they can help sort of support you in what skills they think you need to build up to get into that particular area, or give you a bit more of an insight into what the team's like, how they work, what sort of roles they do, I guess.
Can you explain a little more about your role and how you serve the government?
Yeah, so I'm the economic advisor leading on analysis for export promotion support. So I particularly look at value for money and how we can deliver those services effectively to UK businesses.
So what are the steps taken to provide efficient service to the public?
So definitely making sure we have the best evidence available. So that means sort of keeping up to date with evidence, doing our own research, sort of being in line with keeping up with research that think tanks do, or speaking to academics. And then we can see sort of make sure we're spending government money correctly. So yeah, we have our own sort of value for money model, and we can look at how particular services might perform and how much sort of benefit, I guess, they turn out. And that's sort of how we can evaluate how we're providing an efficient service.
So is it hard to work with stringent procedures and regulations?
I think sometimes it can be quite time consuming. So I think we have to build that into our work a lot. So the planning process can be quite long because you need to get clearance from a lot of different people. But sort of, I guess we understand it. There's a lot of training we go through. Yeah, I guess it can be time consuming, but I wouldn't say it's too difficult.
So what are the special skills and qualities needed for a civil service?
I wouldn't say there's any particular skills and qualities you need. I think a lot of it is learning on the job. And this was sort of the first proper job I got in an office environment. So I'd say I did a lot of on the job learning. But I do think it's helpful to sort of be confident, a good team worker. You work with a variety of different people and teams, so that's really important. And you present as well to a variety of people, whether that be sort of other analytical or economics colleagues, but also it could just be other civil servants that have no idea about economics. So you have to sort of work at tailoring how you speak to different people. So I think people skills is really important in the civil service, no matter sort of what role you go into.
So how was your university days? How did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed university, and I really liked UEA and Norwich. I thought it was a really nice city. I liked UEA so much that my brother actually ended up going there because I spoke quite highly of it. So yeah, I did really enjoy my uni days. It's good to learn a lot. I think, yeah, that was really good about UEA. There was a lot of opportunities to learn and do different things.
Do you have any further success stories in your life which you like to share with us?
I guess I'm quite early on in my career, so I don't know if I have many success stories. But I guess just getting on to the fast stream, I was sort of very happy that I managed to do that, and then sort of progressed on to getting promoted sort of within 2.5 years. That was quite an achievement as well. So yeah, I guess those are success stories in themselves, and hopefully more to come.
So finally, what is your advice for the students studying in UEA?
I just say take advantage of the opportunities that you have while you're at uni. There's lots going on, especially sort of extracurricular, like trying new sports or trying new activities, and join different societies while you're at university. And also I think, like, read around what you find interesting, sort of do extra research. I know it can seem quite like time consuming and things, but this is the most spare time you're ever going to have in your life. So definitely make the most of it and do things that you enjoy.
Okay, so that's all I have. Do you have any further comments for us?
No, I think that's everything. I hope that was okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining. Welcome to the Knowledge Economic Podcast. This is the Working In series, and today we are talking to UEA alumni who are working in the government sector. Here we have Oyegoke Joseph, an economist from Bank of England. We can hear more about his role, success story, and how he developed his career this far. Hello, Joseph. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
So, can you tell us when did you graduate from UEA and what was your program?
So I graduated from UEA initially in 2014, studying a BSc Economics, but then I stayed on for an additional year to do a master's in Finance and Economics since I graduated from that in the following year in 2015.
So how was your university days? How did you enjoy?
I love them. I love my uni days. I think, when you before you go to uni, you hear a lot of like people saying, oh, uni are the best days of my life. And you're sort of like, no, I have very fond memories. I met great people. I met my now wife at university, so yes,
oh, really?
very impactful. I guess you can say it was life changing. But in terms of like the course I did as well, I guess I started studying economics. I think it was just shortly after the period of the financial crisis, and so it was a really sort of interesting time to study economics, and had some good lecturers. Was able to choose a wider range of modules, so I felt like I got a really good experience at UEA.
So can you explain a little about your current role in the Bank of England and how long have you been in this role?
I joined the Bank of England in late 2020, so I've been there for about just over 18 months now. And I work as an economist in the monetary analysis division, and within that, within current economic conditions. And what that basically means is that we tend to focus on just basically creating a nowcast, so that's a contrast to our forecast. So looking at the state of the economy over the present day and over the next sort of 6 months. So that's sort of like the maximum horizon we tend to focus on. And within the division, we focus primarily on demand and output, labor market, and inflation. And so, as you can imagine, the past sort of couple of years have been really interesting. Of course, with quite sadly, of course, the COVID pandemic, and just the impact that's had, of course, on human life, but also on the economy. through, COVID related, restrictions and the like. So it's been really interesting just analyzing all these things, trying to quantify the impact on the economy. But also it's been quite a challenge as well, because it was a unique shock. And so as a result of that, we couldn't just wait for perhaps, the standard indicators that we use to highlight the state of the economy, like GDP, because of course that's published with, a lag of some months. But so we had to sort of create faster indicators, looking at a variety of other data sources to give us sort of like an idea as to what was happening in the economy in real time. So yeah, it was a really interesting time, but very rewarding as well in terms of just being stretched and challenged and developing as an economist.
Before joining the Bank of England, where did you work? Since you have graduated in 2014.
Yes, so I started out, I'll do it in sort of chronological order. I started out working as a pricing analyst. So this is like a non-economic role in for a regulator called Monitor, now known as NSS Improvement. So directly in the healthcare sector. So yeah, I started out there in terms of gaining analytical work experience. But once the first sort of economist role sort of jumped out at me, I jumped at the chance. So my sort of path to working as an economist is sort of non-conventional. So there was no sort of graduate scheme or anything like that. So after working at Monitor for a year, I then joined the consultancy called Capital Economics in the private sector. So they're a macroeconomic consultancy. I particularly enjoyed macroeconomics. I thought, okay, great, this sounds like something that would be suited to me. And yeah, that was an interesting experience. I mean, it was a good experience in terms of like the work. I really enjoyed the work. It was fast paced. Working for clients was different. So imagine you've spent 4 years writing academically I was working on commodities analysis, and but because I wanted to focus on the UK economy, so I moved to the office for budget responsibility, and I was there for 3 years. So working on a combination of fiscal policy, because the OBR, Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR is a shorthand for that. The OBR, basically the UK sort of fiscal watchdog. So I guess a part of the role in which we have is to analyze, scrutinize, government budgets, spring statements. We do our own economic forecasts. We evaluate and analyze as to whether the government would are sort of like forecast to meet their fiscal rules. We look at the government balance sheet. So loads of things on the sort of like macro side and the fiscal side of things. And so yeah, I did quite a lot there in the 3 years I was there, and I found that again very interesting. My first time working on fiscal policy. So yes, it wasn't so much macro from capital economics. It was quite a bit of micro that I was doing when analyzing policies, but also a bit of macro in terms of like forecasting. So yeah, I had a sort of varied experience there, but also helpful for my personal and career development.
So, in which city do you live now, and what about it is good for your career?
Okay, I'm based in London. So London, UK. I was born and raised in London, so literally going to UEA in Norwich was like my first experience of leaving London. So you can imagine, I left London. I was thinking in Norwich, oh, everything seems so slow here. Like, where's slow pace? And then I go back to London. So that was quite the experience. But yeah, born and raised in London, so I think it made sense after uni to move back home. For me personally, that is. And yeah, I was able to find work in London as well. I've been based here since. And yeah, I think I quite like it. I enjoyed the city life, of course. With COVID, there's been more working from home, which is good. Provides a lot of benefits. I can't imagine commuting to the office 5 days a week anymore. It's impossible. I can't never go back to that now. But I do enjoy, living in London, working in London, and I think it's just a great area to be for doing things like networking. Things are close together, concentrated around the city, so it's easy to sort of like network, to meet up people, things of that nature. So yeah, no, I have no complaints. I guess my biggest complaint would be that it's pricey, but everything's pricey now in this current inflationary environment. So yeah, I can't complain.
Do you have any advice for recent graduate on how to decide which industry to choose?
Great question. I think also recent graduates would be, of course, finish their degree. So I'll aim at as graduates opposed to students. I just think that just networking is so important. I think you want to be in a position where you can make an informed decision about things. So you don't want to dive into an industry where you haven't perhaps done much research, or you haven't spoken to someone who already works in that industry to get as close to first-hand experience or advice on it. So if I finish university, I finish my studies, and I'm unsure as to whether I want to work in the public sector or the private sector or in the charity sector or whatever it might be, then I'm looking to go out of my way to find people, to meet people who are in sectors or industries that may be of interest to me, and to just ask a variety of questions. Just ask, what is the experience like? How are the people you work with? What is the nature of the work that you do? Is it interesting? Is it stimulating? Is it challenging? Is there scope for progression? I think these are the things to do. And I think in the world today, social media is the biggest thing. You can access people on LinkedIn. You can send someone a message asking if they're willing to connect with you and, ask questions. Of course, not everyone will respond. You can't control people's responses, but some people will. I did it myself, and I was able to get, some advice from people. And now that I'm working, people have reached out to me, and I try my best to engage in as far as I have availability. But I just think that being able to get to speak to others who are in the industry you want to work in or maybe interested in could either lead to getting good advice, bit of an insight, or even best case scenario, you might be able to shadow that person, for example, or get a miniature internship. So I think that it can feel daunting initially, thinking, oh, I don't know where I want to work after university. I should have this known by now. But there's probably a bit more time. There's more that you want to work in. Your first job is very going to be your last job. I have to take time to network, speak to people who work in the areas that you work in, and then hopefully they'll help to make a decision.
What inspired you to choose this line of career?
Oh, so I really enjoy macroeconomics.
Yeah.
I just find it very interesting. So you can imagine, like when I was going through like A levels, I was studying economics at A level and maths A level as well as history, and that was my first exposure to economics. And of course, in the backdrop of that, I'm hearing about financial crisis and credit crunch, and I'm having no idea what it is. And then, of course, I'm being taught economics at an elementary level. Aggregate demand, aggregate supply, consumption, investment, all these sort of things. I'm like, yeah. And I get to university, then when I think I was at calculus, and they're like, oh, you can differentiate total revenue to get a marginal revenue, and I was like, oh my gosh, no way! There's actually application. Like it actually makes sense. I just thought it was just, I don't know, just some abstract sort of mathematical thing, and yeah, I didn't see how it worked together. So if you're, I don't know, some people might be thinking, okay, you're quite nerdy because that interests you, but I found it fascinating. I really enjoy. I've enjoyed seeing how all these things interact. I enjoy seeing how the economy interacted. I had loads of questions because as you're taught things that, a very big level initially, you're taught aggregate supply and aggregate demand. And if you boost aggregate demand, but you're on the long run aggregate supply, then it creates inflation. So what do you do then? Oh, I have to boost aggregate supply and shift the long run curve so it can boost both output and keep inflation down and stuff like that. And so I just had loads of questions. I'm like, so why isn't everyone boosting aggregate supply then? So to boost the output in the long run. And of course, issues like productivity, stuff like that. So, and external shock. So to some people, they might be boring. To me, I found that so interesting. And I think from there, I really wanted to work in the area and also just to think critically through it, because as you progress through your studies, you realize the world is not that simple. There's so many things at play to consider, And I like working through those things and thinking critically through and hearing the counter arguments, people who don't agree with like interventionist or government policy and stuff like that. So I think that influenced me to pursue work in an area that involved macro. But I also enjoyed financial markets. I love thinking about the interaction between the macro economy and financial markets. And that's why I did a master's in finance and economics. And later on, I studied for my CFA level 1. CFA stands for Chartered Financial Analyst Qualification. Really interesting.
Okay, that's a nice one. What one thing would you do different if you were beginning your career now?
Ooh, what would I do differently if I was in my career now? That's a good question. Ooh.
Any change
I
you
already
want?
spoke about the networking point of things.
Mm.
Yeah, so I guess I already spoke about the networking aspect. I would probably even take a step further back. I think if I'm in second year university, the first thing I'm doing, I'm applying for a year in industry. I think that your career can sort of start before you finish uni. And I think a year in industry or some sort of work experience, I've increasingly come to be persuaded that that is an excellent thing to do or to have before you start working. And I guess the reason I say that is because you're able to sort of like, it's almost like sticking your toe in the water before diving in. You're getting a taste for what it's like to be in a working environment, but you're probably not going to be under the same pressures as someone who's like a full-time employee. Also, you get a chance to see, you know, the application of your studies as well. So I've just come to think that, you know, securing an internship or having a placement of some sort, I genuinely think that if I was to go through this whole experience again, that was something I would pursue. Some people finish a year in industry and they're motivated to get through their final year, or they've secured a graduate offer conditional on getting like a 2-1 or something. So they're thinking, I really need to work hard this year. Or they might think, you know what, that area wasn't for me. I'm going to change my models and third year to something else that's more interesting. And so it can provide a helpful steer, in my opinion. So I think the first thing I would do differently would be to pursue some sort of work experience before finishing uni, or just after finishing university, seeking ways, not only networking and pursuing experience, but seeking ways to improve my CV in terms of like the type of skills you would use in the area of work you desire. So I think for me right now, working as a macroeconomist, I'm often using, you know, econometric packages. During my master's, I used data quite extensively. I think whilst of course the university is using, but if you know that all the workplaces are using a different platform, if you can if you can maybe pick up some of those skills through like free courses and stuff like that, whatever university is offering, I strongly encourage people to do that. If you're university, most workplaces will use a package like R because it's free. So if you can pick up skills in R, simple things that you might use in the working world, such as maybe cleaning data, running regressions, all those sort of things, I think that will hold you in good stead for when entering the world of work. So again, the 3 things I think I've mentioned over the course of the podcast is networking extensively, trying to get some work experience whilst in uni with a placement year or internship, and lastly, trying to improve your CV through building up skills that would be useful for you in the world of work.
What are the steps taken to provide efficient service to the public as government service?
Okay, I guess, yeah, the Bank of England is a public-facing organization. So whilst we're not like a government department like the Department of Health or anything like that, we are public-facing. The bank's mission is, you know, to promote, you know, monetary and financial stability for the good of the people of the United Kingdom. So So I guess in terms of the steps taken, um, the Bank of England have been working very hard to ensure that their communication is much more, I don't know, you say, palatable, easy to digest to the public.
Yeah.
Um, so I think if you were to examine Bank of England communication over the past, I don't know, 10, 20 years, you'll realize that um, things have changed dramatically. The sound bites that they now provide, their use of social media, their use of bank underground posts, things of that nature. They're trying to make it, really clear as to what's going on, so that in a time like this, i.e., cost of living crisis, people are better equipped to define what inflation is, what a change of interest rates would lead to, how that would impact people, um, to try to answer key questions that people are talking about. And I think that it's helpful because people will make better decisions and rational decisions based on having better and complete information. When there's sort of informational asymmetry, um, then people are less likely to make sort of like rational decisions. So I think that the Bank of England are very careful to ensure the Bank of England, and I would add specifically the Monetary Policy Committee as well, who are independent of the government. They're very careful also in their comms surrounding, let's say, interest rate decisions, as to sort of like why they made the decisions, what the various factors were that influenced that. So that yes, those are some of the steps taken. Very clear communication, breaking things down to an audience of various levels of expertise so that people can understand these things, even if you're, early in your career or an advanced economist. I think that those are some of the steps that are taken.
So, is it hard to work with stringent procedures and regulation?
I don't think it's so bad. I think so. I guess with the Bank of England, for example, if being again public facing,
Yeah.
if I don't know the BBC get in touch and ask you to do an interview, you can't really do that interview. Like it has to be, there's a process you have to go through. For you to feature in something like that, they'd have to contact the Bank of England, and the Bank of England's, have various departments, I don't know, stakeholder engagement, stuff like that. I don't think it's too hard. I think you have to make yourself aware of what the relevant procedures and regulations are, so that you can operate within them. So I think that's the key thing, really. I don't think it's too hard personally.
So, what are the special skills and qualities a civil servant should possess?
So I guess my time at OBR sort of opened my eyes to this, because the civil service were, very big on, competencies. If you've applied for a civil service job in the past, you've probably heard of things like, delivering at pace and collaborating and partnering and, all these type of things. So I think that competencies are just very important. Being able to give examples of times in which you've worked well with people, times in which you've worked to tight deadlines, times in which you've prioritized well. They're very big on being able to not just say, oh, I possess this quality, or I worked hard to that deadlines, but rather giving examples of how you've done that, describing the pressures that you are under and how you were able to, reach a certain outcome, quantifying the outcome. Because there's no point saying, oh, I submitted my work on time, but you don't describe what happened. You want to be able to say, with all these pressures, you're still able to do the qualitative research, quantitative research, the analysis, you worked with people, you met the deadline, and as a result of all these things, you were able to attain a 2-1 or first class or distinction or merit or whatever it is. So the civil service are very big on competencies. If you know what they are looking for, they're looking for people who can deliver at pace, who can collaborate and partner with people, who can lead, who can present well, all these things. So, and I think another thing is that these competencies, they're not like hidden away. They're on the websites. It's very easy to gain access to them, to read through what they're looking after at the various different levels, and then to sort of begin to develop yourself. So, and I think what helps as well is it's just being sort of passionate about the work that you do, because if you have the same competencies as someone else, what will differentiate you in, let's say, an interview is one person's more passionate. I really enjoy it, or I'm fascinated by it. So those are the sort of things that would probably help people.
Do you have any advice for the students who want to become civil servants in the future? What should they do?
I think that what I said just now is helpful. Familiarize yourself with the interview process, especially from like, things like the fast stream. I'm not sure if things have changed now, so if it's outdated, forgive me. But if the fast stream is still there, learn what you have to do to apply for, the government economic service, fast stream, mainstream, whatever it might be, diplomatic service, whatever you're interested in. Learn what the process for applying is about. Do your research, speak to people who may already work there, and network people who have done it before, and they can give feedback, and that can give them a bit of confidence before going for the interview or going to apply for it. So I think that's the power of networking, and there's always someone who's willing to talk about their experiences or to give advice on how to apply. So
do you have any further success stories in your life you would like to share with us?
I guess I'm not so sure about success stories. I guess I think obviously when you go to university, so I took a path that isn't like the conventional sort of finish uni straight graduate scheme and get 2, 3, 4 promotions in the next sort of 9-10 years. I moved around quite a bit, so I'm quite pleased that I've been able to secure a role that I'm fairly happy with. I mentioned to them that I applied to the bank for their internship, graduate scheme, postgraduate scheme, all these things, and got rejections. So that sort of like discouraged me from applying going forward. And so I applied again based on their advice, and I secured the interview, and that's network. Of course, there's various networks available, various people available that you can reach out to. The most important things that you learn from every experience and try to improve thereafter. And that's basically what I've tried to do. So yeah, I might not call it a personal success story, but I think it's just don't be discouraged if you've got a rejection before. Everyone in life will have to go through that at one point. Keep going, keep improving your craft.
Yes, I think we have covered all the questions, and thank you very much for the insights. So thank you very much for joining today.